Hey there, content creators. This video is going to be kind of a crash course in getting started in Adobe Premiere. I'm just going to go through the basics for anyone who has a little bit of experience with it, but maybe you forgot how to get started, how to get your media imported, get a new sequence, all of that stuff. This is just a quick getting started guide for somebody with a little bit of basic knowledge of what's going on already. I'll have more detailed videos for starting from scratch if you're a brand new user at a later time, but this video is just the crash course for somebody who already has an idea but kind of forgot some details. So let's jump right into it. When you go into Adobe Premiere, you first open it. You should have a window that looks something like this. You've got the ability for a new project or opening an old project. Generally, you try to start with a new project, keep everything nice and separate. I'm actually going to open a project because I have one going already with a little bit of tutorial stuff in it. So I'm going to stick with that. Your recent projects will always pop up right here for you, which is super convenient because it always starts up with what you were just working on, and that way you can go right into it and continue working. But if you haven't opened anything recently, obviously that list is going to be blank. But we're going to go into our YouTube tutorial project that I have set right here. Yours should have this basic layout, but over here you probably have nothing showing because we haven't brought in any footage yet. So the first thing we are going to do is we are going to import some footage. In order to do that, there are a couple of different ways. I have two that I'm pretty partial to. The first is just doing file import. The keyboard shortcut for that is Command-I, Control-I if you're on a PC, but that automatically brings you to file import. It's quick, it's easy when you remember it. You hit import, you navigate to wherever your folders are, and of course, then you bring them in. Now, a quick note on that folder management. This is a big note for anyone who's ever going to be a professional editor or graphic designer or anything involved in your computer. Your folder organization is absolutely imperative. You've got to keep your stuff organized. Keep folders, keep things in those folders. Don't just let things get lost in downloads or somewhere on your computer. If you're doing a project, everything for that project, you want to try to keep it in one place. You've got to stay organized. So anyway, we're going to come in. I'm going to import this entire folder that says editing basics. It's got a couple of pictures, a couple of videos, and a music track in it so that we can lay those down on a sequence. And when I hit import, you'll see they automatically created a little folder. Adobe Premiere calls these bins. Bin, folder, same thing. They're used for organization. If you ever want to create a new one, there's an option right here that says new bin. If you don't see that, it might be because your window is a little too narrow because things are shifted over. That's okay. You could always click and drag here to shift things around. You could also come up here and there is an option for file, new, bin right up here in the top. If things aren't looking exactly like this for you, I'm currently in what they call the editing workspace. To change workspaces in Adobe Premiere, you come up here to Window, and there's a whole set of options for different workspaces. I prefer to be in the editing workspace. That's my default place to be. It gives me my source window here, my program window here, and my timeline down here. Now, my project window here is where all of my pieces are going to come together to be assembled. So I have my editing basics. In here, I have a couple of different hand-drawn images that I can look through. I have a couple of different videos, and I have a music track. As I double click them, they open up in the source window. Spacebar will let you play. Pause. So will the letter L. If you hit the letter L, music will begin to play because that's what this is. It's a music track. If you hit L multiple times, it will play in double, triple, quadruple speed. You can also play backwards using the J button, and you can, again, play it in double, quadruple speed by tapping J repeatedly. K acts as a pause button. It's called JKL editing, that you can just have your fingers on those three keys, and it allows you to play forward, pause, and play backwards. No problem. Okay? The only thing I'm missing now is a sequence on which to edit on. To start a new sequence, Command-N is the keyboard shortcut, that'll give you File, New, Sequence. If you need to come up with a custom set of settings, this is the place to do it. They've got tons of sequence presets that you can use. You can see here there are plenty for 4K if that's what you're editing on. HD is usually sufficient if you're just going to the internet. In this case, I'm going to go with HD 1080p. That's my general standard, making a video for the internet setting. That's one way to make your sequence. Another way to make your sequence, if you have a bunch of clips and you want your sequence to automatically adapt to those clips, you could also right-click on one of those clips, just like this. And in that menu, when you right-click, there is an option that says New Sequence from Clip. If you do that, it will automatically create a sequence for you that matches the settings that go with that clip. So now there is my clip and my settings match perfectly on that sequence. I don't actually need that sequence. I'm going to undo that. Command or Control Z will undo your last move, or actually it'll undo your last 30 moves, I believe. That's also up here, Edit, Undo, or Redo with Shift Command Z, Shift Control Z. So I have a sequence. This is my destination for where I'm going to put my clips. In order to put a clip onto the sequence, a couple of different ways. The easiest is just to take one of them and drag it on over and drop it. Okay, and you can see right off the bat, there's my image. My image is actually too big for those sequence settings, so we're going to shrink that down at some point, but that's for another video. Again, basic editing right here, right now. One thing that would be useful is to be able to zoom in on my timeline. See how small this clip is? I'm going to want to zoom in. You can either do that by dragging from this little circle down here on the bottom right corner, and that will let you zoom in. You could also do it with the equal sign and minus sign up next to your backspace key on your keyboard. The equal or plus sign lets you zoom in while you're clicked on the sequence. The minus sign lets you zoom out while you're clicked on the sequence. Makes your life a whole lot easier. So as you can see, I have a clip here. You can drag it around. It doesn't have to stay put right there on the sequence. If you want it to be longer, I believe because this was a picture, it automatically came out by default at 5 seconds long. If you needed it longer, notice how when you put your mouse down here next to it, it turns into a little red bracket with an arrow. That means that it's going to give me the ability to drag my clip out in that direction, so I can make my clip as long as I need to. I think I've just made it about 28 seconds, much more than I need. I can always come back here and drag it back down, and you can see it tells you how long that clip is on the bottom right of my screen. I'll put it back at 5 seconds. Okay, so that's how you put a clip down. You want to edit another one right after it, you just drag and drop. Now you can see it kind of snapped into place. That's because I have this little magnet on. That magnet is called snapping. As long as that is clicked, it will always make my clip jump into place. As you can see there, if I turn that off, you will see that now it doesn't jump anywhere and I have to place it by hand. So snapping can be very useful when you just want to line things up together, but then it could be annoying if you are trying to have full control, so you turn it on or off as needed. As for my video clips, here is a video clip. It's 25 seconds long. So now my dragging and dropping idea, it still works, but now my clip ends up being much, much longer than maybe I needed it to be. So another way of putting something on the sequence, instead of dragging and dropping, I'm going to undo that real quick, is to put an in point and an out point around just the parts of the clip that I want to use. Shortcuts for an in point and an out point, it's I and O. I for in, O for out. I go to my clip, I find just before I start talking, and I'm going to hit the letter I, and you're going to see it highlights everything on my clip that comes after that new in point. And then I'm going to go, I see my character is still talking,
There's snow on the ground.
and when he stops, I'm going to hit the letter O. And you can see that ended the highlight. Now my clip is a little bit shorter. I took off everything that was at the end. Now if I drag that down onto my sequence, it is a shorter amount, and I could snap that onto the edge of my clip. Another thing that is useful to know, students ask me a lot sometimes when they go to drag something and they only get their video or they only get their audio, and that has to do with these two little buttons right here. This is the video and audio that refer to my source. I'm going to bring that back up. If I turn off the audio on my source, then when I drag this down, now I only have the video, and vice versa. If I click to take just the audio, now I only get an audio clip. I don't get a video clip. You'll notice if I open one of these pictures up, the audio option disappears completely because there is no audio with a picture. There is only video. So again, you want to make sure that you have the correct tracks that you actually want to use when you bring it on the sequence. Another way that you could select just video or just audio are these two little buttons right here. If I select and drag from here, this will take just my video. If I select and drag from here, this will take just my audio. That's just for dragging. And finally, I would be remiss if I didn't tell you the keyboard shortcut to put something on the sequence when it's in your source window. And that keyboard shortcut is comma or period. The two do two different things. One is called insert, one is called overwrite. So if I move my cursor right to the middle of these two clips, I can do that with the up and down arrows. It lets me jump from edit to edit on my sequence. If I hit the comma, that is going to insert this entire clip from the in to out in between these two images, and it'll push this one down just like this. You can see now my image went to the end. I've got my video in the middle, and the other image is still back in the beginning. If I hit the period, it's going to do what's called overwrite. Overwrite is still going to put it in the exact same place where my cursor is, but it's going to overwrite everything that comes after that. So this image is going to be erased when I hit period. You can see it's no longer there on my sequence. It is completely gone. It still exists over here. I could go and drag it back down if I needed to. In this case, I'm going to undo that. And again, I can use comma or period to insert something back in on the sequence. And then period would only be if I wanted to overwrite. If you're editing at the end of your sequence, it doesn't matter which one you use. There's nothing to erase. Comma or period will put something at the end of your sequence as long as that's where your cursor is. Comma and period always work with either where your cursor is or if you have an in point or out point on your sequence. If I put an in point right here and then open up that video and tell it to overwrite, it's going to go on my sequence where I put that in point. I'm using plus and minus to zoom around so you can see how that worked. And again, even if you make a mistake and put it in the wrong place, you can always click and drag it and move it around. And finally, the last thing I need to make sure I show you is how to move an audio track underneath something that you've been using. So I'm going to open up my audio track. You can tell it's an audio track based on it being just the little sound icon here. And you can take that audio track and drag it to an audio track underneath your other clips. And you can tell it's quite loud. The easiest and quickest way to bring that volume down is to come right here. There's a little line going across it, and that line is your volume. You can see as I drag it up and down, I have the ability to raise or lower my decibels. I'm going to bring it down so that it's a little easier to hear whatever's going on, particularly me talking over it, even if I hit play. So now that's much quieter, and my voice stays a little bit louder. That also works if you've got a voice track here. If my voice isn't loud enough, I can raise it up using that same little volume setting to make sure that my level gets better. And that is the basics of getting your editing together. Again, I mentioned there'll be a more in-depth tutorial on my page for you to see, but if you've edited before and you just kind of forgot, how do I get everything on there? How do I change some audio levels and make everything fit? Those are the basics. That should get you going for a while. Let me know what you would like me to do in a future video. If you have any questions, anything I should include, leave it in the comments. Hit those subscribe buttons, those like buttons. Help my algorithm, get me noticed. Appreciate you all being here, and I will see you next time Happy creating.